Everybody, welcome to Snow Talk. This is Wave 3 News meteorologist Brian Good. We are going to face a couple of systems here we'll be talking about that do have a little bit of snow potential with them. But overall, this will be the last scheduled Snow Talk of the season. Tomorrow we begin mainly Storm Talk, although at times may have a different title. But this will be the last scheduled Snow Talk. If you see Snow Talk again, it's because we'd have a more significant system that would be heading our way. I don't see anything like that coming up anytime soon. So our stats as we end meteorological winter later on tonight will be 14.4 for the season. Normal to date 11.2, so above normal snowfall for the winter of 2015 and 16. And then as far as last winter to date, 15.7. Remember, we picked up our biggest snowfall really on March 5th last year. So it was after meteorological spring kicked off officially. All right, so on the board tonight, we do have small discussions here of snowfall to discuss as we get into tomorrow night and again on Thursday. We'll get into that in a second. First off, today, not bad. We're in the mid-50s at the moment. Southwest wind. Very nice, pleasant day. The winds are not off the chain today, which is always good. Our system we're going to be watching is going to be this right here. Across the Dakotas, the front range of the Rockies diving down. It's going to begin to get a south flow. We're starting to see some of the clouds responding to that tug, pulling in that moisture and warmth out of the area of Louisiana and Texas. But the problem is, it's a very short duration of that pulling effect that it's going to be taking place. So it doesn't have a whole lot to work with because of that short duration or short window of being able to take advantage of the Gulf of Mexico at the moment. So that's going to be our saving grace to really limit our severe potential for Tuesday. Having said that, here is the risk for today as the system gets going across Oklahoma, slight risk, and then tomorrow, mainly across the Tennessee Valley into the deep south, is where the slight risk for severe thunderstorms will be. We were in that zone all the way through midday today. Not exactly sure what some of the data was overnight to lead to that, because the data today, when I got in, didn't even show anything close to that level. It's mainly been marginal, and that's where we are now for a good chunk of wave country. And again, this will be for mainly late morning and midday tomorrow. So here is Futurecast showing the wind arrows this afternoon. Mid-upper 50s tonight. We drop down. Upper 30s around 40, but we'll warm up rapidly once we really get into that south flow. But again, it's a short duration of this south flow through the morning hours, so it's going to try its best to warm us up. We may get well into the 50s before we start to see thunderstorms, and most of this is going to be heavy rain, not much lightning, but I think there will be some lightning and thunder embedded in this, especially south of 64, but it's going to have a limited potential even for that. It looks like this line is going to move in just as we all are preparing for lunch tomorrow. And that is good and bad. Bad in a sense of timing, when it's going to impact a lot of us trying to get out and about, but good in the sense that we are not going to have this moving through the max heating of the day. So again, it's got its limits as it passes through here. Mainly a heavy rainmaker for a brief period. Some gusty winds, can't rule it out. Maybe some lightning and thunder, but that's really about it. And then after that, we get a break, and then we get into the colder air side of this. This is the RPM model and Futurecast showing that much moisture around to give it, as far as anything of snow, for tomorrow night. But notice the drop here. That's a good drop from tomorrow afternoon into the evening time frame, from 50s into the 30s around wave country. So let's talk about these severe parameters first. We're going to break that down here. The Schref ensembles, the black solid lines we look at to kind of get a good handle of the mean or the average of all the different model ideas that we see from the Schref model. And what we're looking at here is going to be the potential for shear. And the magic number for me all the time for severe weather is anything over 40. And you see that the average only takes us to about 32, 33 for an average on shear, then drops us back down. So at this point, there's only a few members that get us in the higher range here, but most of the models say this is going to be below the severe wind potential that is showing up there for tomorrow around midday. When you look at the dew point, 50s is good. You can get gusty thunderstorms and severe weather with dew points 50 or higher. And that's what the forecast is. So there is a decent amount of moisture around to produce some heavy rainfall at least, and there's some moisture around to produce some gusty winds. But again, if you don't have the instability to tap into all that, it's a mute factor basically. And the CAPE, or the instability, is reflecting that. CAPE's below 200 joules per kilogram here on the Schref model for an average, which again, there's just not enough. I mean, you got strong winds, or at least relatively strong winds above the surface, but when you don't have the ability to get the clouds built up enough to get into that wind field and pull those winds down, then you're dealing with just mainly heavy rain and a little bit of wind. That's about it. I think that's going to be the trend as we head into tomorrow. In fact, the rainfall totals on the Schref averaging out about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch as that wave passes through here around midday tomorrow. Some models a little more than that, but I think ½ inch to 1/4 inch is probably 3/4 of an inch is probably a good round guess of that. Another factor I looked at too Anytime I look at 850 temperatures, anytime I see 850 temperatures of 10 or higher, that is what makes me think, okay, there could be a severe potential in our area. And you see, we're only maxing out around 7 at 850 temperatures here locally. There's a few 9s showing up in the slight risk zone and then much higher to the south. It's only one ingredient of many that come together for severe weather, but this is one that I'll look at right off the bat, and I'm already seeing a lack of 10s, especially in our area. So again, it's another factor that really reduces our thinking on that. So sum it up, gusty winds, heavy rain, a little bit of lightning and thunder, but the severe risk just doesn't look to be there. All right, now tomorrow night, here's the Schreff model showing it as we head into sunset and a few hours after. It's a quick changeover to the period of snow. There's not a lot of moisture to work with. It's only got maybe 2 hours at best to take advantage of moisture combination of the combination of moisture and the cold air to produce a thumping of snow. It's a very short window, and the models are varying somewhat on how much moisture is around and the temperature profiles. But even having that in place, you've got to look at other factors, which would include the warm ground and the wetness of the ground from the rain we'll have throughout the day. And those two other factors will mitigate any other potential for snow. So, right now it doesn't look that impressive. I know a lot of you have seen the high-res NAM, which develops a low a little closer to I-64 and tries to give us a decent thumping of snow on I-71 corridor between Louisville and Lexington and Cincinnati. Right now it looks to be an outlier for this event, but we'll watch it carefully. The European model that came in, same thing, shows most of moisture to our east by the time we get cold enough to see any of it go to snow. So right now we're not impressed even with the snow part. Would roll out some snow, but if it did come down at a heavy rate like NAM 4K was saying, it would be mainly a grassy accumulation because it's only got a window of 1 to 2 hours at best to do anything more than that. And again, the warm ground and wet ground would mitigate a lot of that. Then we head into Thursday. This is a Clipper system. It's been showing up for a while. It is diving to the south of us. That's usually a good track for snow for us, but we're now entering March. So we're dealing with a higher sun angle. It's got much more of a fight to produce snow, and it's moving through the max heating of the day when the sun's at its highest angles when it's passing through wave country, which means it's got a tough battle to produce snow. The only way you can do that, and this is very common for March snows, by the way, is precipitation rate. To create that dynamic cooling is pretty much the only way you can get a decent snow in March, or any time after that, really, because you lose your source region of very cold air like we would have in the core of winter. And right now, the way it's looking, and when you look at the GFS soundings here, again, this is the ground, you're looking up higher levels of the atmosphere. When the precipitation rate is relatively light, starting to pick up, it's showing that around midday on Thursday, it's rain. Then when the rate really picks up, it switches it over to a period of wet snow. But notice that we are still to the right. The red line is still right at the zeroed line, which is the freezing line. So it's melting on contact, even if it went to a period of snow. And then as the precipitation rate begins to ease up, we get dry air showing up here. There's a gap forming between the dew point line and the temperature line. We're still above freezing, and we lose the precip rate, so it goes back to drizzle. In other words, this is not looking to be a big deal even on Thursday. After that, we have another clipper. It looks like on the weekend here on Saturday. Right now we're going with rain for that one, maybe a few areas of drizzle as it passes on by. And then the main driver for this winter has really been the PNA. It's been positive a lot through that entire winter season, and it's forecast to go negative next week. And if that is the case, we could be looking at a few days in the 70s and perhaps even our first 80-degree day as we head into next week. That potential is there. So a warmer pattern showing up. Are we done with winter entirely? Are we done with snow? I'm not going to say yes on that because I still see a very volatile pattern that takes us through at least mid to late March that can get some dynamic cooling events. So that potential is there still to get some rain to snow deals. But our luck on that end is beginning to run out the more the PNA is showing a sign of going negative. So we'll see how it plays out. But overall, we'll keep an eye on Super Tuesday, and we'll monitor the rain and thunder as it passes through, and we'll keep an eye on that snow trend for tomorrow night. We'll see you tonight beginning at 5 o'clock. Don't forget, by the way, I'll be doing a special story tonight at 6 about the leap year day. Why is it that we have this day in the calendar every 4 years? I'll give you some insight on that coming up tonight on Way Through News at 6 o'clock. See you then.